This is No Operating Manual, a podcast about building healthcare companies when there's no one clear path and no operations manual. Ben Kuhn has spent his career building healthcare businesses. He started at DaVita, where he built Medicare's first ever specialty ACO. He co-founded a digital health startup focused on stroke patients and ran a turnaround at a distressed SaaS company. And for 5.5 years, he helped scale Strive Health from pre-revenue to more than 120,000 patients and $4 billion in medical spend under management. Now he's co-founder and CEO of Everbright Health. Ben, welcome to No Operating Manual.
Thanks so much, Erin. Good to be here.
So my first question for you is, after researching you and your background and your career, there was just that one word that kept popping up in my brain, and that was builder. You've built a lot of new and innovative healthcare concepts from scratch, and now you're building Everbright. So tell me about some of the skills needed to be a builder and why, after your success at Strive, you decided to jump in and build again.
Yeah, sure. In terms of skills, I would say number one may or may not be a skill, but you have to just really love it. And I do. And so I've always gravitated towards more build stage environments. And that's been the common theme throughout the last decade plus of my career. And so I would have discovered along the way is some people just really get excited and fulfilled by the build, and some people don't. And whereas 10 years ago, I might have had some judgment for people that weren't excited by the builds. I just think it's a matter of personal preference. Some people get fulfillment by helping to optimize to the nth degree an operation, or just really fine tune execution. And some people get energized by building something new. And so I'm the latter, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to really lean in to some really amazing opportunities to do that. In terms of other skills that come to mind, I always think about core skills related to building. So one is being able to just really see the vision of what you want to build and what you want that to turn out to be and what you want the desired outcome to be. I think a lot of people, myself included in past experiences, they fall into the trap of building something for the sake of building without a clear direction in mind. And that's can be fun, and it's energizing and certainly intellectually stimulating in a lot of ways, but it sort of misses the result that is such a powerful potential of what you're able to accomplish if you can build with a specific vision in mind. I think what's actually exacerbating that dynamic in the market is with AI tools today, it's never been easier to just build something. And so, vibe coding is a thing. I've certainly, dabbled in it just to experiment with the tools that are available, and they're quite incredible. And so I think it's more important than ever to really have a clear vision of what you want to build, why you want to build it, and be able to work towards that. So the skill is no longer being able to build something quickly and effectively, efficiently. And the skill is now being really selected in terms of what to build. And that's driven by market need, should be driven by market need. And so I think that's first and foremost. And we'll get more into Everbright, but at Everbright, we've laid out from the onset a multi-year plan and model for where we want to be as a business. That includes financial metrics and milestones. That includes operational metrics and milestones. Going through the process, whenever you get a little frustrated, it's easy to think, well, why are we doing this? Let's just build something because we're brand new. But I think going through that exercise and getting really clear about what you want the business to look like in a year, what you want it to look like in 3-5 years, it really forces a lot of thinking in terms of what you want the desired outcome to be, but then also what are the key inputs or KPIs that are going to help you become the business that you want to be over time. So I'd say that's first and foremost, have a really clear vision for what you want to build and where you want to be. The second thing is being able to break that vision down into very near-term steps that you can take in that direction. I think the times that building has seemed really intimidating and really difficult are the times where I've experienced a long-term vision, but have been unclear on how to take that first step or how to take that next step. And that can seem really daunting if you're not taking one step at a time. So I always think about one foot in front of the other, and moving along the way to that desired outcome that you've laid out. And then lastly, full vision for the future in place, taking one step at a time. You have to be able to embrace the fact that the plan and the desired outcome and the reality are going to look totally different. And so I think that it's important to always have that vision, that North Star of where you're heading, and being able to take step after step towards that vision, but understanding that things are going to change, and that vision has to adapt and morph over time. And so I think about the core skill there, just being around one, just acceptance that that's going to be the reality. But then two, creating just a lot of sensitivity, and being able to really parse out market signals that you get along the way, which would force you to either hard pivot or just tweak along the edges to constantly shape what you're building in terms of what is going to resonate with the market and what's going to help you achieve your general end stage vision. So I think about those things, and like I said from the start, it's often not for the weary, or faint of heart, because it's really hard to stay on path and be able to really work through a lot of the mire to work along the way to the vision. But for those that love it, there's nothing better. It's truly fulfilling.
So one of the reasons I named the podcast No Operating Manual is that exactly that third step that you were talking about, where you have to pivot or you have to tweak or you have to decide. And I have to say that you probably have more of a playbook than a lot of the folks that I've met who are in that startup world. So you have that vision, you've got those short-term steps, but you're leaving that space for those pivots or those tweaks along the edges. How do you prepare your team for that third step where you're helping to create the vision, that long-term piece, you've developed those KPIs and those short-term steps, but then how do you embrace or help the team embrace that pivot or that tweak along the edge as it comes along?
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of it is culture building, which should start from the onset, and be refined and coached along the way. And if you create the right culture, which I always try to do, still, not perfect, but not done on my journey, then people will figure out how to become malleable over time. And it's really awesome to see that transition a lot of times, because people realize that things that they have thought of as these mountainous, catastrophic setbacks, they're really things that can be surmountable. It's really interesting to see that happen in the moment. And so I'm always focusing with my leadership team to coach on focusing on what's going to get us to the desired outcome, and not really feeling a pride of ownership in terms of how that happens, right? And so there's an example not too long ago where we, as a business, we encountered what would seem like a big setback because it was something that was totally outside of the business plan that we'd set forth with a specific customer. But the team responded pretty emotionally and distraught around that initially. When we took a step back, we said, wait a second, is this if our end goal with this customer relationship is X, to grow to this sort of volume, be able to expand to new sites, et cetera, is this step actually getting us closer to being able to accomplish that, even though it's a different step than we would have initially envisioned? And the answer was yes. And so people were able to reframe to say, wait a second, this felt like a step back, but this is a setback, but this is actually a really positive thing because it gets us closer to our vision. The other factor associated with that is just being able to relinquish control sometimes. And so if I have what I think is a great idea, and somebody else comes up with a better idea, it's whatever idea is going to help us ultimately accomplish that end goal that we've set out to accomplish. That's the best idea for the business. That's the best outcome for the business. That's also, I like the build stage, is because it feels much more collaborative around what the desired outcome is going to be versus who is responsible for accomplishing it or who comes up with the best idea. And so I'm always trying to instill those cultural values within the team.
So tell me about Everbright. What need does it solve, and how did you go about looking at the market to discover the need?
Yeah, so Everbright an AI-enabled MSO. We partner with mental health providers in the US to enable them to offer advanced interventions within their practice. The need and the problem that we're addressing is that, well, I'll start by stating the obvious. Mental health care is a massive and growing crisis in the US. It's not news to many people. What's interesting about how the markets responded to that, though, is a lot of the focus and investments and the standard of care, of everyday care within the mental health space is largely the same as it was 10, 20 years ago, where the primary tools in the toolkit, so to speak, of mental health providers are prescribing medications and talk therapy. Those interventions are able to help a lot of people. And so it's not at all to underappreciate how much those interventions can make a difference. What's interesting is that if you look at the data, up to 50% of people with major mental health conditions do not respond to those standard treatments, medication management, and talk therapy. And so there's a whole 50% of people who are unaddressed, despite all of the billions of dollars of venture capital, et cetera, that have gone into expanding access to mental health care over the last several years. Meanwhile, on the scientific advancement side, there are really exciting advanced treatments that are able to help that 50% of the people who don't respond to standard treatments. These are FDA-approved treatments in a lot of cases. We focus specifically on two called TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, and Spravato, which are two advanced treatments for major depression. These treatments are FDA-approved. They're incredibly well-studied and clinically validated. They're broadly covered by insurance. They bring a really great patient experience. There's fewer side effects, faster time to response. However, despite all of this, neither one of these treatments has been well adopted in the market. The data shows that under 15% of mental health providers are able to provide these treatments, primarily due to operational complexities and barriers. And so there's this dichotomy of this massive need, the everyday care experience of most mental health patients is very standard and has not changed. But there's all these really exciting scientific advancements at the same time. And so at Everbright, we've created an AI-enabled MSO to help bring advanced interventions into everyday care by partnering with mental health providers, providing the operational infrastructure, technology, and operations that they need to be able to offer TMS, Spravato, and in the future, other advanced interventions to their patients. And so the result is better patient outcomes, a more integrated care experience. Providers have the opportunity to really personalize care using a broader toolkit to treat their patients, and they have the opportunity to grow their practice significantly. So that's what we've been focused on addressing since we launched the business last year.
You mentioned a few times that you're an AI-enabled MSO. What is that? What is AI-enabled within this context?
So to start, it's just say every business these days should be AI enabled in one sense or another. And so I am imagining that the term AI enabled goes from a differentiation to table stakes within the next year or two. For us, we've leaned really heavily into AI from the onset. We incorporate into every aspect of our business. But just to give a couple of examples of where we're leveraging AI, when we partner with providers, they typically have thousands of patients on their panel. And the data shows that up to 35% of the panel of typical mental health provider is often eligible for TMS and Spravato. The challenge is being able to identify who those people are. And the reason that that's a challenge is the eligibility criteria is incredibly complex, often taking into account 10 to 12 different data elements that all need to line up in order to qualify somebody as eligible. The eligibility criteria varies by payer. And so Aetna might have one set of eligibility criteria. Cigna has a completely different set, even though there's some commonalities. And then what further confounds this is it's always changing. And so this is such a dynamic space that the eligibility criteria changes for each payer, typically every 6 to 12 months. And so the idea that a mental health provider can memorize all of the eligibility criteria when they're seeing a patient, they'd be able to run all those algorithms in their head and determine if somebody's eligible or appropriate for TMS or Spravato, and then refer them in for treatment. That's just such a far stretch. And so we leverage AI to analyze the EHR data to incorporate the latest eligibility criteria by payer and determine who among the patient panel is eligible for TMS and Spravato. So fully identify what the data suggests is the roughly third of the panel that is treatment eligible. We further use AI to be able to proxy certain data elements that might be missing from the EHR, and then also pull in third-party data to append to what is present in the EHR. So providers might look and do their own analysis within their EHR, run a basic query, and it suggests that 5 to 10% of their panel is eligible. That's because a lot of the data is missing within the EHR. It's out of date. And so we're actually using AI to determine the full picture of each patient within the EHR, and using that to map to confidence level that those people are eligible for TMS and Spravato, which again are life-changing treatments for those that can get into treatment. And so clearing that eligibility hurdle becomes really powerful, both from the business perspective, but more importantly from the patient perspective, creating access to treatments that are truly going to be game-changing for somebody.
Yeah.
So that's just one example, but we have several examples like that where we're incorporating latest AI technology to be able to create a much greater access for care, ensure that care is delivered in the most personalized and efficient way possible.
It's a weird dichotomy when you earlier said that, mental health treatments haven't changed in many, many years, yet the eligibility for a treatment like this changes every 6 months. So it's like kind of both sides of the spectrum when you're talking about serving these populations that are very underserved. So switching gears, you launched in October, and by the end of December, you were announcing 4 new markets. Besides that, investor ROI, what's driving that urgency?
Yeah, so we think about the urgency from a couple different perspectives. So one is just the market need is so great, and there's so much pent up demand and opportunity related to the treatments that we offer as well. And so, as I mentioned, both TMS and Spravato have been FDA approved, well studied for a number of years. TMS was FDA approved back in 2008, believe it or not. Spravato was FDA approved in 2019. And as the eligibility stands today, over 7 million people in the US are eligible for these treatments. Under 500,000 have received those treatments last year, despite the promise of the treatments on a personal level as well as a population level. And so we think about, if our mission is to bring advanced interventions into everyday mental health care, and these types of interventions can help so many people right out the gate. We just naturally feel urgency in terms of being able to bring these treatments to market. Accelerating that even more is there's an increasing demand among mental health providers to be able to offer these treatments within their practice. So the providers that we partner with, they're wanting to be able to deliver more integrated care to their patients. They're wanting to see better patient outcomes. They realize that more and more of their patients are asking for treatments like this. And so they feel the urgency. They are often intimidated by the ability to operationalize these treatments within their practice. And so when we are able to pair up with a provider that's interested in providing these treatments, really excited about more integrated care, we're able to bring a turnkey solution that enables them to do this, to bring these treatments to their patients. Then there's just a natural urgency of, well, everything is aligned. Let's get going. And then the other thing that helps us with urgency is that our model, the way that we've built it, is it's very scalable. And so we are embedding operational resources within the practices that we partner with. But most of the benefit that we're able to bring, the value that we're able to bring, is more related to technology, scalable, centralized services. And so we're able to turn on new markets very quickly and do that in a very turnkey way. And so entering 4 new markets by the December of last year, right now we're in over 10 markets within the first year. It's really exciting, but from an operational delivery perspective, it's something that we've planned for all along.
That was obviously a deliberate decision to embed within the practices rather than having your own clinics or acquiring providers. Tell me about that decision making and how does that help the practice and the patient?
Yeah, so there's, interestingly enough, there's, when we launched the business, we had a lot of conversations with investors, other industry constituents, many providers, where they just weren't very familiar with interventional psychiatry. In just the last 6 months, there's been so much investment in this space specifically. Yeah, when we look at seed and Series A investments going into interventional psychiatry focused businesses alone, it's over $150 million in seed and Series A investments in just 6 months. And we expect that to continue to ramp. And so as we think about the different opportunities or different angles to approach the market, we're very differentiated in that most of the investment going into the interventional psychiatry space is focused on setting up de novo clinics under own brand, and we're looking to recruit new patients into those de novo clinics. So you mentioned my time at DaVita. I think about it as the DaVitas for interventional psychiatry. I think that's one thesis on the right way to approach the market. We think about it differently in that we see the biggest opportunity as partnering with independent mental health practices who already have relationships with patients, or already providing certain treatments and services to patients who could benefit from advanced interventions, and partnering with them to incorporate advanced interventions within their integrated way. And so what that results in from the patient's perspective is there's not a need to change providers, and you can continue to build on that relationship that you've built on over the last several years, decade plus, with your existing provider. And your existing provider has the opportunity to provide much more personalized care to you. So you might continue receiving certain medications from your provider. You might also go through TMS. You might go through a different regimen of talk therapy, but your provider has the ability to personalize that care plan for you in a way that a de novo clinic that only specializes in specific treatments would not be able to. So we're all about creating more integration within mental health care delivery, not more fragmentation.
So when you're thinking about that, you're taking care of like the patient outreach, the prior auth billing compliance, like the equipment, staffing, all that kind of stuff. How do you ensure that that is seamless to the patient with that practice? How do you make sure that it's not a disconnected experience from their existing care?
Yeah. So my answer to that would just be, it's been in our DNA from day one. So a large part of what we do is seamless integration with independent practices. And that's the core of our entire business. And so we've built playbooks, workflows that focus on operational integration, set up our treatment delivery in a way that is white labeled, so to speak, where we're providing treatments as an extension of the practices that we partner with. We outreach to patients on behalf of the practices that we partner with. And so a lot of the work in the implementation process is just setting up, how do we ensure that this is experienced from the patient's perspective as a seamless part of treatment or care delivery. And so that's a big focus for us. In addition to that, our technology and our data integration enables us to do that effectively on the ground. I contrast that to in other spaces, companies that have gone from a standalone clinic model to launching an MSO as an ancillary business within their overall organization. That often doesn't go as well, because companies like that, their DNA is really around operating standalone clinics or operating de novo clinics where you're able to control every aspect of it. You're not really thinking about how to tailor that to the nuances of a specific market or provider partner. And then a business like that, they'll launch an MSO and discover, whoa, wow, like there's a totally different approach or totally different DNA that's required to be able to deliver on an MSO model. And so for us, we're starting with the MSO model that's our DNA from day one. And because of that, we're able to create a much more seamless patient experience, provider experience.
Got it. Changing lanes. So you bootstrapped a digital health startup and ran a portfolio company for a PE firm. What learnings did you take from those experiences to Strive and now to Everbright?
Yeah. So I think about it in terms of those experiences really forcing me to get back to basics in terms of how I think about business outcomes. So worked for several larger companies. Did my MBA. I'm a recovering MBA. Joking about that. It was a great experience, but those experiences they tend to cause you to think about business at such a complex and sophisticated level that often, which was the case with myself, often you can lose sight of the basics around the business. What are we trying to accomplish? How does this process, this step, this initiative, how does that help us reach our core business target? And those should be very simplified. Things like number of patients we're able to serve, the revenue we're able to drive, the gross margin that we're able to deliver upon, overall profitability. I think when you're operating in those just really kind of focused, much more entrepreneurial environments, there's a sense of survival mode that kicks in, right? Where you're not thinking about a KPI that might be 5 to 7 steps removed from the core business outcome. You're thinking about the core business outcome itself. And so, I think those experiences really helped shape me to be able to just focus on the basics and brought that with me ever since. So it's something that I'm always trying to impart on the team is all the work that we do will have leading indicators. It's important that we also have the central goals and objectives in mind as well.
So, wrapping this up, what advice would you give to other founders building new healthcare companies?
Yeah, I think it comes down to find an area that you are already passionate about or can get passionate about, and those can be different things. But I think a lot of people will tend to gravitate just to what am I already passionate about, and that can be a smaller, more limited set of things. And so I think about it in terms of what can I get passionate about in addition to what am I already passionate about. And great example of that when I joined the kidney care space. I didn't know a lot about the kidney care space before that. So it's not as though I came into that space with an existing passion. I was fortunate to work alongside people who have a family history of kidney disease, or they lost a friend or had a friend go through the kidney disease experience, and that drove their passion for the space. For me, I didn't know a lot about it, but the more I learned about it, the more I got really passionate about it. It's a space that is still underserved, it's a vulnerable patient population. It's an incredible need. And it's an area where differentiated, excellent care can make a true difference in people's lives. And so those characteristics really resonated with me. Just tying that back, I think it's important for people to think about what characteristics they're passionate about and find areas that meet those characteristics. Secondly, I would tie back to one of my initial comments around seeing the vision.
Hmm.
I think for builders, it's important to be able to just really see the vision of what you're building can become if you're successful. And if you're able to clearly see that vision, it helps create a framework for decision making, helps drive motivation when things get tough.
Hmm.
And so that's really important. And then the third piece of advice that I'd say is find other people that share the same passion or the same characteristics for passion, and people who can see the vision as well. I've made the mistake in the past of trying to build as a solo hero, and I think it really does take a village, take a real strong complementary collaborative team to be able to build effectively. So those are the things that come to mind.
Yeah, building that team to be able to cheerlead when things
so you're not always the cheerleader, especially as a CEO. I'm sure that is extremely helpful over time. Ben, thank you so much for your time and for joining me today to answer all these questions. And I look forward to sharing this with everybody out in the world.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to No Operating Manual. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please leave a rating and a review, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. No Operating Manual is hosted and produced by Erin O'Brien of Chemistry, a healthcare marketing and communication advisory. Visit our website at choosechemistry.com.